I want to take a moment now and introduce you to our speaker today. And she will be coming up and gracing us with her presence and beautiful words. And then Russ, her husband, will be treating us to some special music. Licensed Unity teacher Nancy Little is also a licensed professional counselor since 1980. Nancy enjoyed a 25-year university career supporting others to achieve their dreams in her roles as a faculty member, diversity leader, student services director, and counselor. As a spiritual leader of the alternative unity ministry, Unity Spirit of Aloha, Nancy offers a unique synthesis of Hawaiian wisdom, teachings, and spiritual principles in her Sunday messages and workshops. Nancy holds the distinction of professional membership in the National Speakers Association, and she serves Unity regionally and nationally. Nancy is a member of the adjunct faculty for Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute and the developer of a brand new SEE, which is our spiritual education and enrichment program. She's created a new course, Self-Care. That's really important. And that begins and is debuted this October. Please help me in extending a nice, warm aloha welcome to Nancy Little.
Mahalo, everyone. I am so grateful to be joining with you this Sunday in this lovely setting on Maui. It's an honor and a blessing. Aloha Sundays are my favorite Sunday. So it was so exciting. Last Sunday, I was on Oahu at Unity Church of Hawaii, and it was Aloha Sunday then, and then I get to come here. So, aloha kakiake, it's a thrill and an honor for Russ and I to join you. And this Hawaiian proverb is really fitting for my journey on this island and for the time that I've been in Hawaii. I've been here since August 17th. So I've really just been soaking in this island and ocean energy. And our message today, WAI KAHI KE KAO'O, is loosely translated as let's all travel together, like water flowing in the same direction. And I love that image. When I haven't been in Hawaii recently, I've spent a lot of time in Colorado, and I love the image of the water bubbling and bursting along down those mountains and moving in a rhythm and in a synchrony. And isn't that what we really desire for our lives? Oftentimes it seems like if we tune into the news or listen to reports of the world, it feels like we're in chaos. But really, the truth is that we can create oneness and tune into that harmony that is alive for all of us. So let's dive into this. And I like to start with a couple of questions to get your mind thinking. How do we create that internal synchronicity? Because it really starts with us, right? We all know, if we've been in unity any length of time, that it's easy and tempting sometimes to get focused on what's going on outside of us, but we only create harmony and make those desired shifts when we focus on our internal issues and where we get off balance. So think about these couple of questions. How does internal harmony, how does that outpicture for you? When you are truly living a harmonious existence, what shows up around you? Isn't it so much more beautiful and alive and magical? You see so much more of what we desire. But then there are those times where there's that inner turmoil. Maybe we have an upset in our work. Maybe we are in relationship with somebody and things are very tense or conflictual. Maybe we've had a diagnosis that throws us off balance. Or maybe we're just living in a world that can often be characterized as one of conflict. So we have some tools to produce that greater internal harmony. And I'm going to weave together some messages from our unity teachers and merge that together with some other philosophers and teachers from other periods of history and kind of tie it all together in the end with a story, some keys, and a special gift that I'm going to offer each of you. So my suggestion is you stay until the end because it's going to be worth it on many levels. So we can always choose. This is Thomas Merton. Any Thomas Merton fans in here? He's a Trappist monk, and he is from my home state, which is Kentucky. I'm a proud Kentuckian, although I live in Texas now. And as I like to say, I come to Hawaii as often as I can. So he talks about happiness as being a matter of choice, but we want to create that balance, that order that we talk about. That's one of our 12 powers, the power of divine order, clarity and harmony and rhythm. You know, Russ and I took an outing when we were on Oahu. We went on a kayak ride on Kaneohe Bay, and it happened to be one of those days where the winds were extremely strong, and our guides were telling us the person in the back weighs the most and has the ability to steer. And if you want to stay married or in relationship, let there be as little discussion or advice offered as possible. So sometimes it's a matter of just tuning into that rhythm and letting it flow. Now, when we were met with a torrential downpour about 30 minutes into our 45-minute trip back, for me, it was invigorating, and it became even more fascinating, the focus on just put the paddle in and pull it back and just stay in that rhythm. But it is easy to get off. There's nobody in my mind that brings more wisdom around tuning in to the inner than our Unity co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore. And her healing letters offer me such comfort. And keep in mind that she said this in the late 1800s, okay? Imagine what she would say now. And this is probably my favorite quote of hers. I often think that we are in too much of a rush, trying to do too much, and failing to discern and do the things that would mean the most. Can I have an amen or a hallelujah or something? I mean, how on target is that? Every time I read that, I go, failing to discern and do the things that would mean the most. That's why we come here to Unity. On Maui today. Next week I'll be in Fort Worth. You know, I'll be in Indiana in a few more weeks. But wherever I go, I want to carry these ideas, these aloha messages, and these wisdom teachings because they will transform our lives. Now, just take a breath and allow yourself to imagine that you're floating as that beautiful honu is floating. I did not take this picture, although I did get some really good turtle pictures early in the week. I sent these slides to Gary before he left to go off to another continent. So this is not one of my own pictures, but Myrtle says we must have quiet and opportunity for inward searching. It's not, it would be nice too. It's not, if I get through everything else on my to-do list, I'll squeeze it in. No, it's a must. It's at the top of your to-do list, of your must-do list. One of my favorite places in the world is the windward side of Oahu, and this is on Waimanalo Beach. And when Russ and I came to Hawaii for the first time in 2006, I found an Airbnb or a VRBO, I think it was, in Waimanalo. I knew nothing about it. And it's one of my favorite beach walks, and this is one of my pictures. And this reminds me of Myrtle's wisdom, because I can be so lost, and I get so much internal guidance when I'm in the sacred space. And she says the only way really to know is to become perfectly still, to get away from the outer, let the outer go, no matter what it is, and from looking for things into the inner quiet where we are alone with wisdom. In the silence, she says, wisdom is given for every need. Wow. I mean, you can't go buy it. You can ask a million people. Owen and I have been joking about Dear Abby recently since I've been staying with them. You know, you can't write a Dear Abby letter, but you can go into the silence and the wisdom will be there. Now, sometimes we don't trust that inner wisdom or that inner voice. Why not? Why not? Maybe it's requiring us to take a courageous step. When I first got that nudge, that inner voice to move to Hawaii, to move to Oahu and do an internship that wound up being 8 months at Unity Church of Hawaii, I said, there is no way. There is no way. And I kept finding, yes, there are ways. Tune in, ask the right questions, be willing to take the risk, be willing to take the steps. Don't say, God, I will follow if you lead me, and say, oh, I didn't mean I'd follow you there. No, you know, if you say you're willing, you must be willing. And Gandhi. Now, did you all notice the sky last night by any chance? It was profound. I took so many photos, and I posted 8. But again, not my photo, but my photos look a lot like this slide. And I didn't even realize that until I'm just now seeing it. But Gandhi said, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Now that is a tall order, would you agree? It's like, oh yeah, I can do that. But it sounds easier than it really is to be consistently aligned and attuned. But it's possible. And then we feel that inner glow, that inner radiance, because we are genuine and authentic. We're showing up in a way that reflects that Christ presence. We're showing up as our master teacher, Jesus, and we are living the life that we are truly called to live. So John Muir, any John Muir fans in here? I am a big fan of his, and his quotes and his slides and his messages and his books all just call to my heart. I'm an outdoor girl at heart. And so I don't know how I'm going to manage to go back to Texas and have to eat my breakfast, lunch, and dinner inside, because I have so enjoyed the lanai. But there is October. October's coming. But John Muir says this: keep close to nature's heart and break clear away once in a while. Now, you all get to do it regularly, but I do know people on Oahu. I haven't met anybody on Maui to know well enough to say that they do this, but I know people on Oahu that really don't take advantage of their opportunities. They have a big old ocean, a big old pool that's just filled with fascinating aliveness, and they don't ever go in. You know, actually, when I interned at Unity Church of Hawaii, it was like graduate school times 2. And there were days when if I didn't stand on my tiptoes and look out my bathroom window and see that little corner of the ocean that I could barely see, I didn't see an ocean in an entire day, living on an island. Wow. Anyway, back to John Muir. He talks about climbing a mountain, or spending a week in the woods, and that way that it just washes your spirit clean. I am cleaner going back to Texas than I've been in a long time. And it's because of being on two of my favorite islands in the world for this length of time. I'm washed clean. But again, we have to invite it. We can go right up to the edge and not step in, right? And sometimes we resist taking those steps that would allow us those states of being in refuge. So how do we live in the flow? I love anything that has a flow metaphor. I like fountains. I have a saltwater pool in my backyard. That is a blessing. I tell people it's the closest I can have to a real ocean nearby. But to create the flow. So how do you know? How do you create that? How do you know you're truly in harmony and flow with other people? It's kind of like a dance, isn't it? And I love the way that we can move in that rhythm. But then those conflicts come up and those waters seem so turbulent and it could seem daunting. And just as if the water was so intense yesterday, sometimes it can almost feel as if when we get in those turbulent waters of conflict that we could almost be pulled under, that we're in danger. And we know that we're one. We know that. We proclaim that most Sundays, most days. And yet sometimes we look at somebody and say, they're out to hurt me. They're trying to get me. How does that happen? So we have a scriptural reading to help support us in this, ground us in this idea of moving together in this divine flow of living. And it's from 1 Peter, and it reads, "Finally, all of you, live in harmony with one another. Be sympathetic. Love as brothers. Be compassionate and humble." Now, compassion is a big thing for me. And we'll talk a little bit about self-compassion, because like all other forms of self-care or care, it starts first with self. Because if we're trying to nurture others and our well is dry and we're depleted, we don't have very much nourishing water to provide, right? So it starts first with self. So from Scripture, we know that there's an instruction, there's a message to live in harmony, be in harmony. And the humbleness is a perfect twist for many of us, because sometimes we get so caught up in the moment of having it our way or doing it our way, or thinking that we know the best way, that we're not very humble and we don't have that open heart that allows things to work together. So I know these are frigates, in case anybody notices. The real important thing here is flying in formation. And we did see amazing frigate birds in Kauai and how they dive off. And they really do fly in formation. And you know why, right? Who knows? Who wants to say what happens when you fly in formation? When you fly in alignment? Yes?
Well, the lead bird is the one that has the heaviest load, because they're like...
She said that the lead bird does the most work because they're cutting through the wind, that they're doing the brunt of the work. Therefore, they take turns, they trade off. And so when the lead bird tires, that bird will move back into the wing and allow a time of rest. And so there's this ongoing exchange so that the work is shared. And the reason this is important for community is because sometimes there's some lead birds that are doing a lot of the work, would you say? Yeah. And maybe they don't trade off that well. Now, there's two sides to that. The lead bird could be resistant, not in real nature, but in a real community. The lead bird may be resistant because they kind of like being the lead bird. It's kind of cool to be up there in the front. And maybe the others aren't stepping up. Maybe they're thinking, oh, that's too hard. I could never do what he or she does. Has anybody ever said that? I could never do what they do. They make it look so easy. But the truth is, we're all using a fraction of what we have. So back to the miracle of the geese. Research tells us, and I don't know who researched this, but that when the whole flock is in a V formation, that they have 71% greater flying range. They can go further, they can go faster, it's much easier. And that's one of the reasons we come to community, right? Is because we like joining our energy, joining our talents with others so that we can support each other and we can move in powerful ways. Now, that's a significant part, but there's another element that I find fascinating. The birds that are behind honk for encouragement. They honk for encouragement. They're like saying, way to go, keep it up, right on. Now, in Dallas, honking is not a good thing. They are not encouraging you. They are saying a completely different message. The other really cool thing, and the way this relates to community, is that if a bird gets sick or perhaps they get shot, two of the other geese go down with it, and they stay with it until it either recovers and is strong enough to fly again, or if it passes, then they leave it, obviously, and go back to rejoin. But they're with it for comfort and support. And again, it reminds me of what we do in community, how we're prayer partners with each other, how we support. We don't go off and leave somebody behind when they're suffering, they're ill, they've had some life challenge. We support them. And then those geese either get with another flock and then get caught up to the other. So it's a fascinating example from nature of what we can do to fly and flow more effectively. I mentioned Myrtle earlier, so balance. I'm trying to balance. Got to have a little bit from our other Unity co-founder, Charles Fillmore. And this is from Adam's Smashing Power of the Mind. And I love this quote by Charles. It really speaks to me. He says, we must faithfully and persistently deny the appearance of that which seems to be inharmonious, and silently and faithfully affirm the omnipresent peace, love, and harmony that we want to see manifested. Isn't that powerful? So that's from Charles. So we have, I thought this was kind of cute and colorful, affirmation. All my relationships are harmonious. Will you affirm that with me? All my relationships are harmonious. Visualize that, see that. It's like, I'm not a very good ironer. Like back in the day, my grandmother used to give me the handkerchiefs to iron because they were the only things I wouldn't mess up terribly. But I like to think of getting myself into that sense of harmony. It's like ironing out the wrinkles, just smoothing it out, And that's, again, first with us. If we're in conflict with ourselves, if we're having arguments with ourselves, then we're not going to be in harmony with anybody. So I have a little story to tell you, and I need my phone for this, because I don't have this, it's kind of a lengthy story, perfectly memorized. But basically, this story is about a wealthy man. And he And it was a long time ago. I'm not telling you a story about anybody that you would know. But he was a very famous, wealthy person. Do you know any of those famous, wealthy people? And he was passing by a town, and he stopped his caravan right outside a busy restaurant. And he motioned to 4 different people to come over. And so they were excitedly rushed toward him because he was obviously a man of importance and wealth. And he presented each of them with a gold coin. Will you hand me a gold coin? I'm going to do a visual. And he said, this money is to be, just one, shared amongst the 4 of you. And then he went on his way. Now, so what do you think happened? Do you think it was a peaceful situation? So the first person was Persian, and he said, with this money, I will buy some angur. And the second person was Arab, and she said, no, 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 you can't buy that. I want to buy a knob. And the third person was Turkish, and he said, no, no, I don't want a knob. I want a zoom. Well, the fourth was Greek, and she said, I don't want what any of you want. I want to buy stafil. Well, none of them knew what was behind the particular word that each was saying. So they started to fight. Their voices began to escalate. Finally, a person of wisdom was on his way to the restaurant, and he recognized that there was a great conflict ensuing. And he knew that those people, those 4 people, that they had information, but they had no knowledge. They didn't have the wisdom. So he said, well, what seems to be the problem here? And they told him, he said, I can fulfill the wishes of all of you with one and the same gold coin. If you honestly give me your trust, your 1 gold coin will become as 4, and 4 at odds will be 1 united, the perfect oneness. So only a person of such wisdom would have known that each person in his or her own language really wanted the same thing. They all wanted grapes. They all wanted grapes. Now, that's a funny little story, but it makes a really important point because the differences were perceived, right? Have you ever been in an argument with somebody and yes or no and back and forth, and then you lost track of even what you were arguing about in the first place? You just knew that you were polarized and you were coming from a different perspective. So sometimes our differences are not really that significant, but we get entrenched in wanting what we want. So changing perspective is something that we will talk about in the afternoon workshop, because sometimes we can make the slightest shift and something significant will happen for us and for our relationships, for our sense of peace and our ability to flow. So I don't know the easiest way to do this, but I want to, before we wrap up with the 3 keys, I want to invite each of you to come forward. I'm proclaiming that each of you are leaders of harmony, that you are leaders of divine flow, that you are leaders of that inner spirit of balance, rhythm, harmony, love, and aloha. And I'm going to give each of you a chance, a gold coin, and I want you to hold it and keep it somewhere special. This is, it is a true, legitimate U.S. dollar, but it is a gold coin, and it's the treasure that you are. It's the treasure that you have to offer to others, and the treasure that you are to create this beautiful sense of aloha in our world. So how would be the best way to do this? Would there be a simple way to do it? I only have 1 basket.
Someone hand them out.
Okay, Russ, would you do that? And I'll be wrapping up. Does that work? So the 3 keys, these are the keys, and just imagine like you could unlock the door or the chest or the drawer to your heart to create more divine flow and more divine harmony. The first key is to set time to cultivate an intentional practice for resolving any internal discord. Maybe you're holding on to unforgiveness with yourself. Maybe you're holding guilt or shame about something that happened. I don't care whether it was last week, last month, or in the 1950s. It's time to let it go. So resolve those internal discords. The second key, be faithful in your affirmations of peace, love, and harmony. We in Unity are big on affirmations, and yet sometimes it's easy to go hours or days or weeks and maybe not engage in that practice. I love to do burning bowls at least monthly, but you can do them anytime, and there's 2 parts for me. One is a release and one is an ignite. So I'm releasing something, I'm igniting something else. But just continue to be true to that. And then finally, the third key is to open your heart, hands, and your hopeful spirit as you build bridges with other divine beings. Just think of every person that you see, that you interact with. They're another divine being, we know that. So how can we build a bridge to create that harmony and that love? And as Russ wraps up the gold coins, does everybody have their own gold coin at this point? Almost. We're going to take these into our time of meditation as a focal point. Everybody gets one. You guys may not be able to hold on to it right now during the meditation, but you know it's there. And it is your kind of touchstone for this divine being that we're all in the process of becoming. So join me in taking a cleansing breath. Inhale and release. And just envision yourself relaxing into and moving into this sacred space, the sacred time where we are connected to our inner awareness, opening doors that sometimes remain closed, sometimes are shut off. And if you are so inclined, you might even want to put your hand or your finger gently over your heart as we connect to that heart space where we truly know at the depth of our being our miraculous divinity and our Christ presence. And if you will, allow yourself to open to the nudge of spirit, the nudge of source. With another breath, just rest in this space, discerning ways that you can become an even more harmonious, love-filled, peace-filled, and joyous being of light in the silence. with another inhale, we tune in to our gratitude for the time that we spent in this sacred space. We say, thank you, God. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the opportunity to rest with a knowing and an appreciation that you can return at any point in time with a whisper. And so we say thank you for all the blessings that flow in and through our lives as we become more present to the moment that is here on Unity of Maui, tuning into the music and awakening to the presence of the beloveds that share this space with us. And so it is.
Where